Good afternoon. I'm Nan Fife. I'm the chair this year of the AFSA Committee on Elections. So we're the sponsor of this town hall meeting. Mort Dworkin, who's seated on my right, is another member of the election committee who's with us today. First, I want to thank everyone for taking your time to come over here for this event today. I want to remind you all that this town hall meeting is being recorded and it's going to be made available on the AFSA YouTube community channel and also on the AFSA election website. The candidates speaking here today are running for the 2019 to 2021 AFSA Governing Board. They're candidates for the position of President, Secretary, Treasurer, and Constituency Vice President and Representative. You will not be surprised to hear that due to overseas assignments and other business engagements, not all of the candidates are present with here today. Service on the AFSA Governing Board certainly takes time and dedication, so I want to commend all those candidates for their willingness to serve in this capacity. As a professional association since 1924 and the exclusive bargaining agent for all foreign service employees, AFSA is uniquely positioned to be an advocate for all of us, for both active and retiree members alike. AFSA members, of course, are encouraged to participate actively in this year's election to ensure that we're represented by a cadre of dedicated professionals. In terms of logistics on the election, just to remind everyone, ballots will be emailed to all AFSA members on April 29. In addition, hard copy ballots will be sent out only to retiree members. And all ballots must be returned by 8 a.m. on June the 12th to be considered. So for our presentations today, the order of the speakers is by the order that the offices appear on the ballot and was determined by a random lot in previous meetings. We're going to have strict time limits on remarks. The time allowed for candidates is 5 minutes for the candidate for president, 3 minutes each for the candidates for secretary, treasurer, and constituency vice president, and 2 minutes for each of the constituency representatives. And those candidates who are not able to be here today are allowed to have someone else read their statement on their behalf. The AFSA Elections Committee also considered and decided to allow write-in candidates to speak at this event as well, as long as they are write-in candidates for a position for which there were no nominations. So I think we have at least one write-in candidate who will also be speaking during our event today. And then following their presentations, we will have a question and answer session as well. So at this, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Mort to introduce the candidates and handle the question and answer session.
Thanks, Nan. We ask that those that are making statements make them from this podium, which I've just been warned is actually a movable podium, so hold your gestures to a minimum. Time will be kept by an AFSA staff member seated in the front row. Ashley. She will hold up a card at 2 minutes left, at 30 seconds left, and then she will stand up when the speaker's time has expired. In fairness to all, time limits will be strictly observed. I will introduce the speakers by groups. As a reminder, candidates should introduce themselves and name the position they are running for. The staff member will also help indicate who is going next if someone is unsure. The first speakers will be candidates for president, secretary, and treasurer. So let's get started, please. For president, there is a substitute speaker.
Thank you for the warning, by the way, on the podium. Appreciate that. So my name is Tom Yazgirdi. I'm actually running for state VP, but it does actually move. Eric Rubin, who's running for president of AFSA, asked me to read this statement. Good afternoon. I'd like to start by thanking Tom for reading the statement today. I'm in Bulgaria and regret that I cannot join you in person. I have been a member of AFSA since I joined the Foreign Service 34 years ago. I am running for president because I believe in the power of unity, because I believe in our association, and because I'm deeply committed to our profession, our service, and our country. This is a difficult time. We need to stand together to meet the unprecedented challenges we are facing in our careers, in our jobs, and in the impact that the current situation is having on our personal lives and our families. I am running at the head of the strong diplomacy slate, and I am grateful and honored to be running together with such an impressive and dedicated group of colleagues. We chose to continue the strong diplomacy name because we believe that the strong diplomacy slate members on the current and previous boards accomplished great things, together with all the members of both boards. So we want to salute them and make clear that we want to carry their work forward. But there is much more work to be done, and we have our own ideas and our own objectives. Most important is to defend our members, both active duty and retired, in all the foreign affairs agencies. This does not just mean supporting members who are engaged in grievances or legal action, although that is an essential role. It is about standing up for every member of AFSA, all 18,000 plus of our colleagues, and representing their interests, their concerns, and their legitimate needs. We will pursue that task with energy and vigor. This is the most important reason our members pay dues, and we owe them our unceasing efforts to advance their concerns. Equally important is standing up for the Foreign Service and for American diplomacy. This is not an easy time for either, and we will work hard to educate our lawmakers, opinion leaders, and members of the public about why our work matters and helps keep the peace and defend our national interests. We cannot be passive in the face of what is almost certainly the greatest set of challenges that our service has faced in its modern existence. This also means constructive engagement with senior agency management on recruiting, promotions, diversity, and overseas staffing. We will do everything we can to help achieve consensus, but we will be firm and resolute when needed in defending our members and the critical work that they do to help keep America safe and prosperous. High on our list of priorities must be ways to address the need for more diversity in hiring, promotion, and assignments. Things are not going well on that front in any of our agencies, to put it mildly. Equally important must be ways to bring back a family-friendly foreign service that strives to keep families together and to support our people and their families overseas. We need to push senior management to move away from focusing on ways to keep our members from serving overseas if they have any issues or challenges, and get back to a model that emphasizes supporting overseas assignments for all of our colleagues and their family members wherever possible. I pledge to you all that I will work with the new board to take a hard look at how AFSA can work more efficiently, how we can deliver better services to both active duty and retired members, and how we can give you better value for your dues money. We are fortunate that if elected, we will inherit a very well-run organization that has already made significant management and structural reforms, but there is more to be done. My colleagues and I on the strong diplomacy slate ask for your vote. If elected, we promise to do everything we can to support our members, to advance the interests of our foreign service and our profession, and to serve our country by helping to make the U.S. Foreign Service the critical pillar of our national security and national interest that was envisaged in the Foreign Service Act of 1980. We will work for you, and we will support you and defend your interests, your concerns, your careers, and your families. And we will do everything we can to ensure that the dedication, sacrifice, and commitment of our over 18,000 members is recognized, supported, and valued. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Nan and Mort, for organizing this, and obviously to the entire election committee. My name is Ken Carroll-Mentz. I am running for Secretary of the American Foreign Service Association because I care deeply about AFSA, the only organization dedicated solely to supporting and defending the Foreign Service as an institution and our Foreign Service officers and specialists on a collective and individual level. Over the past 2 years, I worked closely with AFSA's current secretary, Tom Boyott, and collaborated with him in developing a bylaws reform package AFSA members will vote on this election. These bylaw reforms clarify key positions and the governing structure of AFSA, ensuring proper oversight by the governing board and the executive committee, and strengthening the positions of officers. I was pleased and proud that the reforms were unanimously supported by AFSA's governing board, and I want to continue to improve AFSA's governance as secretary. For the past 2 years, I served as the vice president of AFSA, representing our members from the Department of State. I brought my passion for improving the lives and jobs of members of the Foreign Service to the office every day. Working with our excellent team in AFSA's Labor Management Office, we fought for locality pay for local hires following A100, challenged the department to do more to allow us to do our jobs while keeping our families together, and ensured that DS agents working on the Secretary's detail would keep their overtime benefits. I'm proud of the work that we've accomplished, and I hope to serve as a bridge between the current board and the next. I also worked closely with AFSA's other vice presidents and representatives from the other foreign affairs agencies. I've learned a great deal about the challenges that all of our colleagues face across the Foreign Service interagency as we navigate our careers, our lives, and our retirements. Early in my career, I had volunteered as AFSA's post representative and won post rep of the year while serving in Berlin in 2009. Returning to Washington, I served 2 terms on the AFSA governing board, first under the leadership of Susan Johnson and later with Bob Silverman. I learned a great deal from both of them and even more from President Barbara Stevenson over the past 2 years. I've seen firsthand how they've led AFSA, and while AFSA is stronger than ever, there's still more to be done. During this critical time, AFSA needs to be as strong as it can be for you, our members. I want to ensure that our resources are focused on outcomes benefiting our members, and our governance ensures a well-run organization. I ask for your vote, and I look forward to hearing from you over the coming months. Thank you.
Hi, this is Tom Yazgirdi again. You know, Eric Rubin called me a few months ago and told me he was interested in running for AFSA president and asked me if I would join his slate as the vice president for state. To be honest, before Eric called me, I hadn't considered running for AFSA anything. But the fact that I was asked by Eric, one of the first people I've met in the Foreign Service and from whom I have the highest regard, and I think that's shared for many people in this room, if not all of them, really sold me on that position and what we can do together. You know, when I mentioned to family members that I was hoping to be one of our union's leaders as my next assignment, I got some good-natured ribbing. My brother-in-law asked if it would be like the scene in the movie Goodfellas, you know, when the mobster Ray Liotta is taking his future wife on a date trying to impress her, so they don't have to wait in line at the Copacabana Club. They get the best table at the dinner show. Everyone is calling him sir and being very solicitous. So after being wowed by all this, his date finally asks him, "What do you do?" And he responds, "I'm a union delegate." But seriously, I'm hoping to follow on the good work that has been done by Barbara Stevenson and her team, her strong diplomacy team, in the last 4 years. What motivates me the most is the advocacy part of this job. From my 31 years in government service, 27 of those years in the Foreign Service, I bring to the table a strong sense of advocacy and results-oriented action. In my current job as Special Envoy for Holocaust issues, I try to bring long overdue justice to Holocaust survivors and their families. The job requires not only mastering the details of complex issues like property restitution and compensation, but also understanding and empathy. If elected, I want to bring that same sense of learning and empathy to the state VP position. We all want to make the Foreign Service a better place to work. We want to attract the best and brightest and to ensure that our service is relevant and is at the forefront of foreign policy formulation. But none of this can be achieved if we do not focus on our most important resource, our people. That is why my top priority will be engaging with state management and our Congress to make certain our salaries are competitive, to improve our benefits, to ensure colleagues are treated fairly, and to help shape career promotion and retirement precepts. I promise you that if elected, I will get smart and take action on current issues of importance to our union, from special needs kids to the sonic incidences in Cuba and China to continuing problems with the hiring freeze. Thanks, and I ask for your vote.
Now turning to retiree vice president.
Well, thank you, Morton, and appreciate your organizing this. I'm John O'Keefe. I'm running for retiree vice president, and as you can see, we're really on the move. It's a unique period. The Foreign Service has commanded respect of our leaders, of so many in this community, in the foreign affairs community. But right now, we are at a crossroads. We see attempts to gut the Foreign Operations Appropriation, basically our lifeblood, sideline the important work of all the foreign affairs professionals, and at the same time, we do see strong bipartisan support in Congress. But it's a time of risk to our well-deserved benefits, to our pensions, and really to the heart of what we do, protect the interests of the United States and its citizens in so many ways. I am part of the Strong Diplomacy slate. I am really honored to be on that slate with Eric and Tom and others. And as Tom and Eric in his remarks that were read note, it is a group of people who are really going to look after the interests of the Foreign Service. And I think they will be very, very dynamic. One of the issues is, as this deficit grows, and you've probably read the issues on the budget caps and the fights that are coming up, our pensions are going to be at the center of the bullseye. And so we really need to be ready, and we need to have this kind of team fighting on our behalf. So it strikes me that the best strategy is one that reminds our skeptics and our supporters the vital role the Foreign Service plays, particularly by citing specific examples. We have our retirees spread across the United States who may wish to engage with their member of Congress and their communities. Our job is to make it easy for them to do that. Keep in mind that our personal stories are very powerful. I have 30 seconds, so let me just say, since I retired, I've spent the last 10 years heading a legislative branch agency guided by a bipartisan board of trustees, the majority of whom are members of Congress. Working with this great AFSA staff, I am committed to helping and working with the team. So thank you very much, and Ashley, you don't have to stand up. Hold your applause, please. Thank you.
Another candidate for retiree vice president, John Nayland.
Move it back. So I guess for retiree vice president, the motto is vote for John, because we're both named John. My name is John Nayland. I'm the current AFSA retiree vice president, and I'm running for re-election. I believe in the last 2 years, I've dedicated time and energy into the position, and if re-elected, I pledge to do the same. I think I have a couple unique value added that I bring. I'm a former director of the Office of Retirement, and with that knowledge, I've helped retirees and also active duty folks push back against some stealth changes the Department of State has been trying to push through. And I'm also, if I am reelected, it'll be 20 years on the AFSA governing board. I was AFSA state vice president 20 years ago, and I was AFSA president twice for a total of 4 years. And so as things come up in the new board, Ken Carroll-Mentz will be there for continuity. But beyond that, there's not a whole lot of continuity. And so to avoid reinventing the wheel and things like that, I can put my voice in there. So I ask for your support, and I also want to echo what Ken Carroll-Mentz said about the AFSA bylaws that are coming due. coming up for a vote. They were approved unanimously by the governing board, and every one of them is useful, and a couple are important. And there's a rumor that some members may, which is authorized, get together to put a statement opposing them. And if they do, I stand ready, as I'm sure Ken does, to answer any questions that anyone may have. In my blast email addresses, I put my personal email address. So if there are any questions about the bylaws, I'd be glad, because I was involved in helping develop them. I'd be glad to answer, because I think they're important, and some, at least one, is critical to reestablish the executive committee as a middle ground between the president and the governing board. So again, thank you, and I urge you to vote, and if you're a retiree, please vote for me.
There it is. Good afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you happen to be in the world today. My name is Jay Carrero. I'm the FCS Vice Presidential candidate, and the Foreign Commercial Service plays a critical role in advancing U.S. interests in every region of the world. While you as FSOs do the hard work to ensure our companies get a fair shake and our interests abroad are protected, it is AFSA's job to ensure that you have the tools and resources you need to work effectively. This includes providing strong advocacy through AFSA for FCS in Washington, as well as working closely with our management team at Commerce to advance our mission. I'm excited to be part of that effort, and I ask for your vote for FCS VP. I intend to continue the excellent work of our outgoing VP, Dan Crocker, and I will be your most ardent advocate in Washington. Like Dan, I will continue to push for transparency at all levels within Commerce, especially with respect to budget and workforce planning. Having worked directly on those issues previously, I can immediately dive into current debates, challenge assumptions where necessary, and work toward reasonable solutions. I'm not saying this will be easy, it won't be, and I will rely heavily on your feedback to ensure that our voice is fully heard. I also intend to continue to engage vigorously with our backers in Congress, and will leverage our relationships with the district export councils and chambers of commerce throughout the country to raise our profile. My outreach strategy will also include working with our most underappreciated cheerleaders, our colleagues in the domestic field, who are often our best conduits to members of Congress. Finally, while being a commercial officer is certainly challenging and rewarding, no one ever said it would be easy. As you all know, living and working overseas requires fortitude and sometimes sacrifice. AFSA can and should play a role in ensuring that the mechanics of life in the Foreign Service go as smoothly as possible for you and your families. My door will always be open, and if you feel that you're not getting the support or guidance you need, I want to hear from you. I will do my part to advance your interests, hold management accountable, and ensure that our organization provides the necessary support so that we can all perform at our best. Thank you very much.
I'm reading the statement on behalf of my colleague Tamir Wasser, a fellow member of the Strong Diplomacy States. Tamir wishes that he could be here, but he is helping planning for the 70th anniversary of NATO that the Secretary will host over the next 2 days. I am running for the AFSA board because after 22 years in the Foreign Service, I know that we, as members of that service, have the greatest responsibility for maintaining and strengthening it. We cannot hope that someone else will care more about the Foreign Service than we will. AFSA has an important role in shaping our service as both a professional association and exclusive representation of the Foreign Service. AFSA is engaged in many of the decisions that affect us now and those that will shape our future. We need a Foreign Service that can effectively shape and execute foreign policy and represent the United States overseas. We must attract, maintain, and advance a diverse workforce and ensure that support mechanisms that underpin that. We should lead in adapting diplomacy to the changing world where power is more diffuse and ensure our members have the tools and the skills to be successful in that environment. I know of the personal commitment of my colleagues on the Strong Diplomacy slate to our service, and I am proud to join them. I humbly ask for your vote.
Hello. Sorry. So my name is Lillian Wells, and I'm also running on the Strong Diplomacy slate, and as AFSA state rep to focus on two priority areas that affect the health and well-being of the department and its employees: work-life issues and flexibilities, and career progression and diversity issues. In 2011, I helped launch an employee organization called Balancing Act with an incredible group of foreign and civil service colleagues to help the department modernize its work-life policies, but make also the business case for it, including in areas such as flexible work arrangements, telework, parental leave, elder care, and child care issues. I was also an AFSA board member at that time from 2012 to 2014, and during that time, I successfully helped advocate for programs such as our current voluntary leave bank, backup care, DEDOs, and job share reform, among other tools. As part of a Foreign Service and Civil Service tandem today, and a current board member of AFSA, I'm a mother of 2 children, and I want to continue focusing on these issues that are not only smart policies that help all employees, but that I believe increase productivity, morale, and retention of the department as a whole. I also want to focus on the health of the Foreign Service, which includes several core issues: career progression and talent retention, including better analysis of the data of what drives people to leave and conal issues. I want to improve the diversity in the department at every level, not just at entry, and we should be also analyzing that data to help us achieve this goal. If elected, I also want to work with and leverage the fantastic affinity and employee organizations we have at state so that together we can achieve even more, as many of these groups were instrumental in helping us achieve some of the things I've mentioned already today. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matthew Dalbo. I've been a member of AFSA for 20 years. I'm one of those Foreign Service officers who didn't imagine at the time that I joined straight out of college the incredible experiences that I'd have representing our country abroad and serving it in the United States. I'm incredibly thankful for that opportunity that I've had. As an AFSA member, I've benefited during those decades a number of times from the organization's service, mostly when it came to what I found to be impenetrable regulations that the first time I was facing them seemed very difficult to understand. I want to thank Sharon, for example, for helping me with my marriage notification to the department. I want to thank other members of AFSA and employees who helped me understand how to take paternity leave when I finished my detail at the NSC and I was assigned back at the department on a Y tour. I want to thank Ken for your doggedness on the MSIs from a couple of years ago. So I'm transitioning now from a period of assignments that were incredibly challenging to go into 2 years of language training. And it seemed to me that this is the perfect time to give back to the organization and to Foreign Service officers in all agencies if I can. The vision that I have is just to identify practical solutions to some of the long-standing challenges that I think we all face in our work. Second of all, to solve egregious problems. For example, for me, it's been so hard to get into the mandatory leadership class. I think we need more spaces for that. And then third of all, to engage the department leadership productively in a conversation that identifies issues from the bottom up through listening, through things like the sounding board, to solve practical problems, to allow the department to make the most of the incredible human resources that it's accumulated. Thank you.
Again. My name is Kristen Roberts, and I'm running for state AFSA rep. A little more than a year ago, my family was separated when my youngest child was diagnosed with a congenital birth defect and curtailed from post. As a family in crisis, we had a lot of questions, but very few answers. What I've learned over the course of the last year about being the mom of a special needs child could literally fill a tome, and yet there is almost nothing in the way of meaningful guidance for families and individuals in the throes of a life crisis. I'm running for state AFSA representative because I believe that in order for an organization to succeed, it must place people at the heart of it. Although my interest in serving is driven in large part by the unmet needs of families of special needs children, I'm equally passionate about promoting work-life programs that support more flexible career options and lead to a more fulfilling life in and outside of the office. These programs benefit our entire service and have the potential to improve our retention and our recruitment of top talent, in particular women and minorities. I know from personal experience that a happy and a fulfilled employee is a productive employee. As a career PD officer, I also know that an organization's efforts are only as good as its communication with its members. I want to help close the information gap between AFSA and its membership by engaging in more regular dialogue about AFSA's activities. The recent lapse in appropriations also highlighted for me the need for ongoing and productive communication with allies on the Hill and others. Our story is important and it must be told in the most compelling of terms. Finally, I want to give a brief plug for the rest of the members of the Strong Diplomacy slate, of which I'm proud to have joined. Every individual on the slate is committed to service and positive change, and it is an honor to be listed beside them. If elected, I will do my best to put people back at the heart of our organization, and that means putting people first.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Daly, and I'm a retired Foreign Service officer running on the Strong Diplomacy slate to be your retiree representative. I also served for 9 months as Director of Advocacy at AFSA. This is the period in which the administration was threatening a 30% cut to our budget. So I left my WAE job to help Barbara get a much better appropriations bill passed, and now I'm back being a WAE. In terms of why am I running, when Eric asked me to run on his slate, it was very much like when Barbara asked me to come over to help with advocacy. The Foreign Service is in such threat right now, and I love the Foreign Service, and I love this country, and whether it's for the sake of national security or the defense of our profession or the defense of our individual salaries and benefits and pensions, we're in trouble right now. If I can take some of my long experience in government and prodigious energy to help the organization, the profession, you individually, it would be my honor to do so. People have already listed a lot of the issues, but obviously it's salary and benefits, it's a hiring freeze that was never fully lifted, it's promotions. I think for the retiree community, there's any number of issues. Protecting you, but also making sure we involve you, use your talents, use you in our advocacy programs to the extent that you want to be. What I've also noticed as a retiree is when you're a WAE and you have a fob and a login, you feel very plugged into what's going on at state and AFSA, and you know how to get engaged. But the minute you're not a WAE, you can feel isolated. So it would be my pleasure to figure out a way to connect people better, find out what people need, and see how I can be helpful. So thank you very much.
Thank you to all the candidates. Now we will have a brief question and answer period. In the interest of time, we would like to keep the questions to 1 minute and the answers to 1 minute, questions being real questions. Anyone who would like to ask questions should line up and use the standing mic at the back of the room. Using that microphone will allow the questioner to be heard on the online video that's going to be put up afterwards. Questions or answers that cannot be heard will simply not be included in that video. Members of the audience should state their names, excuse me, their names at the beginning of their question and to whom the question is directed. Candidates should come to the podium to answer the question. And I see we already have the first question, so please begin.
So thank you. So I know a little bit about it because I'm currently the vice president, and the union, or rather the department, has a responsibility to inform the unions, not just AFSA, but also the civil service unions, whenever any sort of a merger like this does occur. So we have been informed, I would say at a fairly minor level. There's not much that we can do to influence it. What I saw as my role was to urge the department, particularly the bureaus which are impacted, to begin sort of socializing, talking about this merger early on so that it wouldn't come as a big surprise. So it's been a few months since we learned much about it, but it was, it's IIP and yeah, merged. Yeah, so it's I guess it's PA and IIP particularly. So I guess what they're doing is they're taking, right now we have sort of an outward-facing public affairs and an inward-facing public affairs, and they're going to be joining it together. It's a little bit concerning, I think, for those of us who care about like where we stand, and I guess I'm out of time. Yes. But we are doing a little bit on it.
I'm glad you asked the question because I think it hits at two issues. One, the importance of Congress. I mentioned that I worked on the appropriations bill a year ago, and in addition to going for money, and more money, we also looked for language they could include in the appropriations bill because it's the only bill that passes. People on the Hill were very concerned with writing things in that would prevent the department from making changes without first consulting with the Hill. They had in their mind things like, at that point they were talking about moving the Consular Bureau out of the State Department. So I don't know the precise details of this change, but I do know that Congress is watching. I would also say something else about AFSA. We need to have a strong voice when this kind of stuff happens, all right? You can't whine all the time about every little change, but you have to figure out the changes that undermine the diplomacy and the power of the United States of America. AFSA needs to have a voice. We will with a strong diplomacy slate. Thank you for asking your question.
I just want to say I really appreciate your question. I'm actually economic cone myself, but my favorite assignment I've ever had was out of cone in the public diplomacy section of the U.S. Consulate in Hong Kong. I think outreach is incredibly important. In my onward assignment as a consul general in Japan, I intend to focus a lot on outreach. I think your question really does highlight some underlying issues as well. I said I think that we really need to have a great listening program in place to generate ideas from the bottom up. I had the privilege of going to one of the secretary's morning coffees with a bunch of officers recently, and he says he wants us to innovate and he wants us to be held accountable, and I certainly agree with that. But I'm a big fan of what we used to have on OpenNet, the sounding board, where people would vote on different ideas and there was more of an open conversation through which, as a group, we could prioritize the issues we wanted to address and ensure that the most innovative ideas from the bottom up came up to the top. And so that's the type of approach I'd like to see to this potential problem. I'm actually open to hearing about this type of solution. I just want to have the conversation.
Hearing none and seeing none, this concludes the AFSA Elections Committee Town Hall. We thank you all for taking the time to attend and to participate. Please have a good day.